I do think the mania, and again, I'm saying this at WEF, and I'll probably get killed for it, the mania of this moment is ESG.
What's up, everyone? Chris Golden here. We had to do some World Economic Forum coverage. I hope everyone's doing well. I know it's been a while, but I've been setting up the studio to do some lives again, so we're going to get back into that soon. But, that was Ken Moelis that we just saw, CEO, banker, founder of Moelis Company in Los Angeles. He was speaking at the World Economic Forum there in Davos, Switzerland, talking and slamming, really, the ESG framework. So what is the ESG framework? Environmental social governance ESG investing refers to a set of standards for a company's behavior used by socially conscious investors to screen potential investments. Environmental criteria considers how a company safeguards the environment, including corporate policies addressing climate change. For example, social criteria examine how it manages relationships with employees, suppliers, customers, and the communities where it operates. Governance deals with the company's leadership, executive pay, audits, internal controls, and shareholder rights. So basically, an ESG framework is stuff that investment companies look at to see whether certain companies are following certain policies, whether, keeping their carbon footprint down, hiring so many, black or trans people or whatever. But one of the big issues with this is you have companies like BlackRock, for example, BlackRock being the largest digital asset or largest asset investor in the world, a largest asset holder in the world, holding over $10 trillion in assets. And BlackRock, for Western companies, they will judge them based off of this ESG framework. So they're investing in Western companies based off this ESG framework, but then simultaneously, they're also going and investing into China, which China does not care about any of these ESG policies. So it creates an unlevel playing field for Western companies in the world. And it allows BlackRock to basically, get richer off of its China investments, while the Western companies are basically fighting an uphill battle to compete with the other economies that aren't following these certain frameworks. So we're going to look at this video from the World Economic Forum of Ken Moelis speaking, and basically watch some clips of what he has to say about the ESG policies.
I'd like to welcome up our featured guest tonight. He's really, I'm from Los Angeles, and, he's, after Michael Milken, he's the legendary LA banker, the CFO of my first company, John Mumtazi, one of the most massively talented people I've ever had the pleasure of working with, was one of the founders of Moelis Company in 2007. And now they're a publicly traded company, and they're the first major investment bank on Wall Street to start a dedicated global blockchain group. And under full disclosure, I'm a senior advisor, but this is the first time we met. So welcome, Ken. Let's give him a hand.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So I assume this is not your first WEF.
No, I've been doing it about 7 years now.
And how has it changed for you over the years?
It's pretty much the same. I use it for meetings. I don't go to a lot of the. It's a wonderful place to meet executives from around the world. I will say that it has gone almost an extremely, I'll just say, climate change agenda from where 7 years ago. It just wasn't as it was not as prominent, and now it's the whole ESG and climate change is dominates the conversation.
And so let's finish on the macro economics. So, right, that's kind of the purpose of WEF. Where do you see us, kind of in the cycle?
Look, I'm a believer this is going to be a very long, tough year, maybe more. To my point, everybody is waiting for the Fed to break unemployment. I think it's going to be way tougher than they think. And I actually, and I know I'm right in the heart of probably WEF and the heart of the wrong place to say this, but what the Fed has to break is the trillions of dollars of investment, misinvestment. Look, that is causing energy prices to kill Western economies. Might not want to hear that, but there's 7 or 8 billion people in the world. About 1 billion of them live in Western Europe and the United States, and I know we're very anxious to have an energy transition, but there's like 1.25 billion people in India. Half of them barely can turn a light bulb on in their house. They cook their food over cow dung, and 5 million people a year die because of that. And then there's 1 billion plus in China. It's literally 7 billion people in the world desperate to get to middle class. They are not cutting out their fossil fuels. They are going to get they're going to get their family to where you all are. From what I can tell, I don't see anybody, looks like they're going to get their family there, and they're going to drive up. And so the fundamental problem is not unemployment and firing people. It's that in the UK right now, it'll cost you twice as much to turn on your dishwasher as it did, twice as much to heat your bathtub, 10 times the energy cost of the US. Western Europe has slit their own throat in the craziest fiscal industrial policy I've ever seen happen in the world. And
I'm sorry, wait, are you referring to Brexit?
Energy. No, energy.
Yeah.
Just pure energy.
Just
purely cutting themselves off from from energy, from cheap energy. They've cut themselves off. By the way, not many people, again, I don't want to get on Pearl Harbor.
And I'm sorry, cheap energy being Russia?
Well, they put all their eggs in one basket. UK had a chance to be self-sufficient and said no. They put all their eggs in one basket. Another crazy industrial policy. They didn't go self-sufficient. They are cut off. And they continue to block capital from going into cheap energy sources. And I think their population is going to let it be known that they want to have a life. They want their kids to go to college. They want to be able to go to work in a car. And I think that's the key, by the way. So what I'm saying is that's the key to an economy to drive inflation down. This is all energy related. And to try to cause massive unemployment when turning on your dishwasher, last I looked, nobody probably has or turning up your bath doesn't require an employee. You can fire all the employees in the world. It's not going to change the cost of heating your house, turning on your dishwasher. So this is what the Fed's going to have to convince the world to stop allocating $6-7 trillion to, I get it, future possibilities for an energy transition, and come back and supply their population with the cheap energy they need.
Seeing these kind of classic
that's why it's going
mistakes,
to take 2 years.
What does it have? And this is even a more macro view. Seen the states make these mistakes. Has your view of democracy evolved?
No. I mean, I like it. It just takes a while, and the fact is, these. I don't know how many of you here, again, I date myself, but there's a great book called Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds. And it happens, the famous one was the tulip bubble and the South Sea, but, there are manias that take over. And, I do think the mania, and again, I'm saying this at WEF, and I'll probably get killed for it, the mania of this moment is ESG. And the forgetting that there are 6 or 7 billion people. We sometimes forget it because, the promenade is nice here. But there's 6 or 7 billion people who are going to drive up the use of energy relentlessly as they strive to be in the middle class.
So, obviously you're identifying, arguably the greatest problem we have. I completely agree with you. But, it seems unsolvable, right? What
in the short term it is. The transition is a long-term transition. It's a long-term transition, and you better not cause a revolution. You better not cause lose your population while you're doing it. And I think the whole thing's happening. I guess my point would be, do not cut out the ability for most of the planet to live comfortably while we transition. Let's transition and let everybody else try to live into the middle class.
In ESG, obviously what you said, standing up and saying what you believe when it might not be the most popular thing to say in a room. For me, the most popular, the most important word in the English language to me is balance, right? Very few things are binary. Most things are balanced, right? And so if you think about ESG, right, and that's the question, okay, what, how much, you obviously think there should be some ESG, right? Thinking about the world is obviously at some cost makes sense. And the question is then where? And, and me personally, I never think about where I want to be in balance. I think about where I want to be out of balance, because you can never be in balance. So where do I want to be out of balance? And I think the planet for, up until now, I think has still largely been out of balance, not caring enough about ESG. And I realize maybe now we're caring too much about ESG, but
I don't know about that. Again, you're not looking at the 6 billion people who.
Oh no, and I appreciate yes.
Who have not been out of balance.
That?
I think they deserve a chance to have a life.
Yeah.
And they're gonna do it. Look, you're not gonna stop them.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So anyway, this is happening. I mentioned Vietnam. I mean, and Vietnam's even further along. Yeah, right. Way further along than.
So again, I get it in Davos, New York, London, Washington D.C., Paris, London. They yes. I'm just pointing out the realities. Look, it's just one of those things. I think one of my favorite quotes ever was, you can avoid reality, but you can't avoid the consequences of avoiding reality.
Okay, I'll let you finish on that. Let's give Kev a big hand.